Welcome back to SCN Swampy Communications Network. Up next is the popular sitcom television series Brackish. So let's let you. Oh, wait. I am getting breaking news. I'm receiving word that fringe candidate Honk Gooserman has just announced he plans to throw his wing into the race for island councilman. We have Dr. Gooserman live right now. What do you have to say, Honk?
Honk! 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 Honk!
Those are very inspiring words, Dr. Gooserman. You found that fine line of respectfully praising the mayor, but also issuing a strong warning to hold them accountable as counselor. Very remarkable. To help us sort through the good doctor's honking points, we go now to our pundit, Professor Murky Mandrake. What do you read into what Honk said, Murky?
First of all, Meredith, goosebumps, just goosebumps. You know, Honk Gooserman has been known for his loquaciousness and his smooth rhetorical style. And, you know, he's always there trumpeting for pond creature rights and aquatic justice. And so it's really inspiring to see him really step up. You know, this goose has not been cooked at the end of that election. Throwing his wing in the race is another move in what is a triumphant political career for a very brave and very noble waterfowl. You know, what happened after that electoral defeat, you know, Honk really rose to the occasion. And in the intervening time, Honk has been really ruffling some feathers with some bold policy proposals. You know, for example, Honk has been touting pond infrastructure to really shore up support, talking about safe road crossings, not just for chickens, but for all birds in the area. And talking about affordable nesting is not the only thing. You know, this is really pandering. TAB has been pandering to sort of fowl bases, but really we need to be talking about, you know, affordable seedling care. And that's something that Honk has really brought to the table. And one thing that's innovative, and I think this is sort of a central pillar to Honk's platform this time around, is talking about building a library on Willow Island, one that will be designed by noted architect Christopher Wren. So, you know, this is a really broad range of appealing policies, and it's fascinating to watch this career sort of play out in front of us.
Thank you.
I couldn't have said it better myself, in fact.
Thank you, Doctor. We already know that Honk has a very open stance on immigration. Oh, I'm sorry, migration. Do you think voters will have a problem with the fact that Honk spends every winter in Floridian paradise, Pensacola?
Look, this is not the first scandal that has plagued Honk's career. Years ago, people were talking about Grey Goose, and they thought that Honk was an alcoholic until they realized that that was really one of his campaign staffers. You know, so this is sort of one of the continuing kind of stigma that is attached to goose and waterfowl. You know, people think that when you elect a goose to office, they're going to shit everywhere. But the truth is, they're going to bring sound policies that are going to change the lives of people all around. Now, when Gooserman went down to Florida, he wasn't there on some kind of political junket. No, people don't realize what Gooserman was doing was he was meeting with political advisors. He had some foul advisors like Dan Quayle and Newt Gingrich giving him sound political advice. He had time to meet with his doctor, Dr. Crane, for some really important therapy to help ground him. You know, this is often something we forget when we're talking about birds. It's sometimes important for them to be grounded. And critically, he had time to hang out with his friend Chad.
Again, reiterating a good point, Dr. Gooserman. Some voters have been quite vocal about their need for fungal maintenance. They are obviously not liking that. Will that be an issue?
There's been a lot. I mean, first of all, and I should have mentioned this earlier. You know, one critical thing that's come up in this campaign is Dr. Honk Gooserman's support from a broad range of community members. You know, for example, his recent endorsement by Canadian actor Ryan Gosling is, I think, going to have a lot of resonance on this campaign. But speaking about fungal maintenance, you know, one of the things that we don't talk about enough, and we don't hear enough politicians and birds honking about, is mushroom and mycelial networks. You know, one thing that Honk Gooserman has been talking about is the idea idea of high-speed mycelial networks. We were on a Rhizoom call the other day talking about this, and the issue is really branching out to different fungal communities, right? So, not just planting the evidence as some swamp monsters might do, or beating around the bush, as it were, but what we need political actors of sound morals that are, not willing to put up with shiitake, right? And so one thing that I think is another critical thing when it comes to talking about Honk's policies is that he's talking about different income bracket fungi. And I think that's important, that we don't just have policies that are pitched towards a very narrow set of interests. And it's inspiring to see a kind of bird that's going to lead the formation, that's not just going to feather his nest, who's really down to changing things on Willow Island, and who's really, really willing to step up and step on the roost and not just be egged on by pundits and by the chattering classes, as it were.
You mentioned him planting evidence. Do you think that someone will file criminal charges?
I think that there's always a sort of, people are always willing to branch out when it comes to slinging mud on Willow Island. You and I have talked about this in the past on previous shows. There's a lot of muck raking going on, and I think that's common. But what we really need, and this is actually what's really important with waterfowl in particular, is something that can rise above the muck. That's something that TAB hasn't really been successful at doing in its career. We have a mayor that isn't really going to step out of the muck, rise above the situation, and really elevate the conversation. It's okay to ruffle a few feathers, but really we need someone who's willing to spread their wings and soar and elevate this small island community.
Well, thank you for putting a button on that issue. Honk met with the local tree and shrub committee and proved to be quite popular. Can he count on their support?
Look, the tree and shrub community really liked his stump speech. And I think a lot of that community has been pining for better treatment. It's really been a pain in the ass to see these policies forgotten. And I think this community feels ignored. They feel like TAB has been sitting on its laurels, and they really want to see their community properly spruced up. So what Dr. Gooserman's going to be doing is getting to the root of the problem, not just this seedy political underbelly, but really stepping up and creating something, not just a comfort food, but creating a change on the island. And I think that this is going to be really good, and people are going to say that it's A-OK.
Maybe we might take a moment to see if anyone in the audience right now has a question for Dr. Gooserman or for Murky Mandrake.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, Meredith, one of the things that's come up, and it's interesting how a lot of pundits have described Dr. Gooserman as a fringe candidate. And one of the things that Gooserman has done is vehemently condemn QuackAnon. This has been a fringe group that has been really taking advantage of the mockingbird media and leading people down many rabbit holes, especially pileated woodpeckers in particular. I think that what's been important is that it's important that these kind of fringe elements, the QuackAnon elements, have been banned from Twitter, and that's really helped things along. It is a little too late, but this is really going to change the political discourse on Willow Island. Oh, we have a question here, I see.
We have a question from Maggie Schaefer. Not much of a question, I guess. She just demands, tell us about the downy underbelly of the opposition. Do you have something to say about that?
Well, a lot of people don't realize that Goose is a bit of a softie. He might hiss at his political opponents. And actually, I have one of his quotes here. Look, let's go to Goose. Let's go to Gooserman in his own words here.
That was from the 2016 by-election, was it not?
That's right. Yeah, and you'll notice the particular inflection. He's drawing on a rhetorical history that is long and broad and patriotic. We forget about this sometimes. Here we have TAB came up, may have pulled itself up from its bootstraps, but we have a true Canadian goose here. This is a goose that stands for Canada, a goose that stands for patriotism. It's a bilingual goose. And I think that's something that we forget. We need the kind of political actors here on Willow Island that can really reach out to different communities and that stands for something, that flies for something. And that animal is Dr. Honk Gooserman.
Thank you so much for being with us, Professor Murky Mandrake. We look forward to more of your expertise as the election season approaches. Have a good evening. Well, this has been all the time we have. I'm Meredith Bogus for SCN. Good night and good muck.
Honk, 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 honk.